Welcome to Our Life the Way. How to survive a snowpocalypse. Living off grid isn't always a bed of roses. Even when you think you've done everything imaginable to prepare, something will inevitably test you. So, what do you do when the unexpected happens? How can you prepare for it? And can you? In just a few moments, we're going to show you how we survived the heaviest dump of snow in over half a century, living in an off-grid tent cabin. But first, please like and subscribe to shake up YouTube's algorithm, ultimately showing you more of what you like. So what we're going to show you. Number 1, storm prep. Number 2, what you can do during the storm. And number 3, after the storm. So, number 1, storm prep. Keep calm and don't panic. While the media and weather stations may imply otherwise, the best way to prepare for any weather is to keep calm. That said, the forecast can be your initial prep indicator, kind of like that check engine light on your vehicle. So yes, a checklist is one of the best ways you can keep your focus on what needs to get done. I'll go over what should be on that checklist in a few moments. But some things to get your mind thinking on survival and safety are shelter, food and water, heat, animal safety, and spare fuel.
Hi, I'm Angie. My spouse and I began our off-grid life just over a year ago. And just like many others, our first concern was getting our initial setup built. Housing, bathroom, outhouse, outdoor shower. But with all of that also came prepping for winter. Living off-grid adds more prepping than traditional country living. Anticipated wood for wood stove heating throughout the winter. This was a new lifestyle, new surroundings, and we had to account for a wood stove for a smaller shelter that we were going to be living in. We also need to look at water hauling and storage since we don't have running water. Also, food prep and cooking and food storage. That is just the normal things that we need to look at on the day-to-day. What about storms? How does that change things? Well, we need to do all of the normal things as well as ensuring we have extra wood cut and that it's accessible. We need to check our food stock and do restocking if needed. Make sure that we had a sufficient drinkable water storage for several days. We need to look at making sure that our vehicle's fuel was at a level that was, full, that we need to make sure that it was full. And also to have extra gas on hand. Not necessarily that we be traveling through any inclement weather, but if your vehicle's full, you can siphon out some of that fuel for, say, our generator or some other power tools if needed. You need to look at whether you need to get another propane tank or fill up your current ones. So we live in an otherwise mild climate where we're at. And we wouldn't normally be using propane during a storm, but we also needed to look at having it up and running for after the storm. Depending on the level of storm or inclement weather, you may not be able to get out right away, especially where we're at. Food preparation. If you're like us and have an outdoor stove, that's how we do most of our cooking. But on crappy days outside, we can use our wood stove. Just we need to be prepared for that. Things take longer. It just cooks differently, and need to make sure that we have additional wood for that as well. Also, need to do a check for any equipment for the storm. Shovels, any other tools or equipment in order to clear snow, and make sure those are accessible as well, perhaps right outside the door, or keep them inside. Super duper important. If you have animals, make sure that you have sufficient food supply. Depending on the level of storm activity, you may not be able to get to the food store, or there could be such a demand that they may be low on certain items. Also, might be good to get a few extra bags if at all possible. Do a check on any fencing. Now, for electric fencing, if the snow gets too high, it's not going to keep your animals safe and contained. So it's something to keep an eye on throughout. So it's also good to keep an eye on that on a regular basis. So one last thing is consider as well where you have your vehicle parked. Once you have all the prep work done as much as possible, and before any inclement weather begins, consider if you can park closer to a main exit. Where we live, many driveways are steep. So a lot of residents park at the very bottom and then just walk up because they may not be able to either get out or it just might not be a good situation. For us, we have a stretch that doesn't get cleared. So, or doesn't get cleared well if there's a big dump of snow. So my honey, Lars, actually had the forethought to park up the road a little bit where the roads are more accessible and cleared. So that was amazing on his behalf. Additional things that might be optional, but to also consider as well. Consider that you might be inside for a while, several days, with the exception of going out to clear snow or check on the animals. Maybe consider having a deck of cards, having a good book or two, some good tunes downloaded or, on your laptop or your smartphone already. Snack food. Out here where we live, they have this thing called storm chips. It's quite the thing. I haven't caught on to that yet. I'm relatively new, but it is such a craze. People go out and they stock up on all the storm chips. There's even a label called storm chips. I have no idea what flavor it is. Somebody let me know. Maybe even download a few movies or have them downloaded or saved to your computer or a memory stick. Of course, watching the power usage on that.
So now let's look at what happens during the storm. So hopefully by the time weather begins to turn nasty, you and any animals are already tucked inside. You may still have a bit of time to continue prepping while Mother Nature gears up. But once the wind picks up and the snow is coming down heavier, you're going to want to hunker down inside. If possible, and if weather allows for it, if an emergency arises, or simply to just keep up with the snowfall, you're going to want to do some snow clearing during the storm just to clear some major pathways. For example, like to your wood pile, to the animals, to the bathroom. Clearing your roof would typically be something you would do after the storm, but for us living in a tent cabin, this must be done frequently so the weight of the snow does not cause our roof to collapse. Just like you and me, animals need care in the midst of a storm too. Ideally, add some extra food and water before the heaviest of any storm. Most animals will take cover on their own, but smaller species are going to need your help. So, if possible, keep the walkways and entrances cleared. If animals need, prep their area with heating or warming water dishes, and possibly a heat lamp. Now, that's going to depend on the temperature while this is going on, right? And make sure to do appropriate research for specific animals.
Being in the middle of a storm with common amenities can get some folks excited. Snow day! Yay! Being in the country, living without electricity, can be a great feeling in the sense that when grid power goes down, we're not affected. But there are many other things that need to be considered and prepared for when grid dwellers don't necessarily need to. I want to paint a bit of a picture of the snowpocalypse that we experienced this winter. We live in a modified tent cabin. It has tarp roofing. It is insulated. We do have a wood stove, but it's in the woods. We're somewhat sheltered with well-established trees around us. And at that time, we had a small flock of layer hens as well as a small collection of rabbits. We began hearing of a major storm expected for our area, probably about a week even before it started to arrive. Even, several prior ones had been forecasted, and the outcome was either much less than expected or the storm had completely bypassed us. So this was a completely new environment for us. New surroundings where we were living out of the normal. We knew that our entire first year would be trial and error, finding out what would withstand the elements and what we would need to sturdy up. So I had been doing some farm sitting for some additional income, and I was scheduled to be away from home, about 45 minutes away, during this impending weather forecast. Lars began stocking the indoor wood pile with kindling and bigger pieces. He also had parked our vehicle up the lane in case of being snowed in, thinking that within a few days, any snowfall would just melt and it'd be all back to normal. This is what we had experienced so far. I don't recall if the generator was topped up at that time. However, the fact that he didn't run out of gas tells me that the level was sufficient. So that was good. As the snow began dropping heavier and heavier, Lars cleared the snow on the roof as well as the common pathways hourly. Even during the night, he would set his alarm for every hour, just so that the snow didn't come crashing down through the truck. The snow did not let up for a good day and a half to 2 days. Over 80 centimeters fell. 80 centimeters. The next two slides after this recording will show you the level that came down. It was incredible, the amount that came down. The most that had snowed in the area for over half a century. I've heard of this kind of thing happening. I've never experienced it. It was amazing the forethought that Lars had parked the van up the road because the mountain of snow that was piled up blocking our lane, the entrance, was at least 10 feet high and would remain there until the snow melted nearly 2 months later. So we kept in contact when the internet was working to be sure he was managing. We also had beautiful, beautiful neighbors and that were checking in with him as well. And because we had prepared as much as we could, we are here to share our experience. It could have turned out quite differently had we not prepared adequately.
So now let's take a look at after the storm. When the storm moves on, it's time to play catch up and assess any damages. It's clear we made it through okay, but there were things we could have done to prepare just a little bit more. Because of the mild winters that are typical for where we live here in Nova Scotia, we had one scoop shovel. To better prepare for next year or any other snow incident, we have a few things on our to buy list. A couple more sturdy shovels, a sled to go over the snow. Since our vehicle was about 300 feet from where we would normally park, carting groceries for the next couple months was becoming a bit of a challenge. Also, have a trash can or a covered box of wood right outside our door, just in case we're not able to get to the further wood piles. We're even thinking of getting some snowshoes to more easily get through the massive snowfall, should that happen again.
All the voices from others began rushing in. Their winters are so much worse than here. Hope you survive. The ocean wind, though, bites right through you. And on and on and on. All the mocking and warnings said with the intention that there would get to be an opportunity of saying, told you so. Obviously, we made it, and quite well, in fact. This storm showed us that we prepared adequately, but that there were still things that we could do better. We are so proud of our accomplishments thus far, but we are humble enough to know and to acknowledge that Mother Nature is fickle and unpredictable and is meant to be respected. What does that even mean? We know that weather can be forecasted, but it can change in a heartbeat. To think that we can outsmart Mother Nature is a fool's game and can cost you your animals, and it can cost you your life. So be prepared as you possibly can. Make connections in case of emergencies that you can call on if needed. Look at areas that could be improved on for next time. For us, our outdoor bathroom door got destroyed by the wind. So that's something that needs to be looked at. It's minor, but it still needs doing. The rabbit area took a beating. And since then, we have completely redone it, moving it to a whole new area. In fact, we began looking at all areas of our building. How could we improve the functionality of the different areas on our homestead? How could they be reworked to become more efficient? This is homesteading, a continuous journey of preparedness, and then after each season, evaluating on how the next season could be better and more efficient.
So now you've got the goods. For a bit of a recap, we covered storm prep, what you can do during the storm, and of course, what to do after the storm. So thank you so much for watching this episode. And don't forget to subscribe and even share this if you found value or you know somebody that would find value in the information that we presented. Thank you so much. Have a great day.